All right, guys, what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna hone the cylinders, just clean them up as best I can. From reading the manual, Kubota tells you to check it like mid-stroke in two different spots about an inch apart. When I check them there, the bore's kind of in spec. It's close enough in spec that it'll be all right. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna hone them and put new pistons, rings back together. I'm not even gonna take any of this apart. So that's all gonna stay together. I'm just gonna slam some new pistons and rings in it and put it back together. I got some gaskets here. I gotta go get my pistons, bring them out so I can put them on this. And I'm gonna show you guys one cylinder. Then I'm gonna go ahead and just do the rest. So you guys can at least see what I'm doing with one cylinder in time lapse. Working on building up the pistons for this. I'm gonna show you guys what I got so you can understand. I opted not to bore the engine like I said before, so we're working on getting this. I honed it, as you guys seen earlier. Now I coated the cylinders with oil just so then I can get the pistons in and I don't damage anything. Looks like I had a little bit of grit in there. Probably just dirt from my hand. So, what I got going on, as you guys can see, I honed the bores. I got some marks in there from the ring, sliding them in and out. This cylinder I haven't done yet. So you want to try to get like a 45 crosshatch if you can. I honed it. I got rid of the top ring. Fairly good. You could still tiny bit feel it. But from what Kubota says when you're checking it, I always check the top, the middle, and the bottom of the bore so I can get a really good idea of what it is. They say to check, it looks like about an inch apart and about the dead center of the bore. When I do that, the bore is, I guess, in spec from everything I was reading. So we just honed it. There are some scoring on this one a little bit, but it's not bad. So anyway, back to building up everything. So these are my pistons. Hopefully they'll work good, I don't know. We'll see. They're from an online place. So they're not OEM pistons. They're made by this company. I really don't know what to say with it, but I'm gonna try them, get some use maybe out of this before it goes up. They might be good, they might not be. I don't know. So anyway, this rod I got set up with new rings and everything. And the pistons you can see are new versus that, which is worn down pretty good. So, I guess I'll explain what I do here. I'll show you guys in a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and drop this piston in and I'll explain it. So I am using assembly lube on it, on the bearings to make sure they don't get screwed up. What I'm doing right now is I drop the piston in, put it on the crank, and I just hand tighten the cap up with this guy. Just hand tighten it right now. I'm gonna torque them when I get done. So I'm gonna go through and torque all four at the same time. So right now I'm just hand tightening them so I can go on to the next and see if I can get all the pistons dropped in. Okay guys, so what I do is you do this for each ring, okay? You take the top ring and you take it and you set it in the cylinder like so. Just get it kind of started in there a little bit, make sure it's in there. Okay, then the next thing you do is you take the piston, okay? And what I like to do is I take the piston and I shove the pin in the hole so that way I have something to grab. And then you can take the piston and use it to push down the ring so that way you get it in the cylinder some. And then you take your feeler gauge and you find the ring gap. I think that one's 13 if I remember right. And then, so you could take your feeler gauge and you feel in there. Reference your manual when doing this for the gap size. In my case, The factory spec for the top ring is 0.0079 to 0.013 with an allowable limit of 0.049. So we're going to check 1.3 and see what it's at, which is what I just checked with. So it feels a little bit tight on the 1.3, but I can fit it. So then we're just going to take the 2.4, which I know won't fit. The max allow, we're just going to use 40 thousandths because that's a little bit under the max allowable limit. That way we can make sure it's not beyond that. So we're just going to take that, and of course it doesn't fit, which I didn't think it would. So we're a little bit over the factory limit because of the wear on the bore, but we're under max allowable. So we're going to go ahead and pull that ring out. We're going to set that ring to the side. We're going to take our second ring, and we're going to go ahead and get that in there like so. We're going to take the piston again, and we're going to push it down with the piston. That way we can get it square and straight. And we're going to pull the piston back out. We're going to take our feeler gauge. We're going to check that to see if it works, which it does. And of course, the max allowable limit on this again is the 49 thousandths. So we're going to go ahead and check that, make sure it's not above that, which it's not, because they won't fit in. So we're a little bit over our factory assembly limit, but we're not over max allowable. Like I said, the cylinders are all good on their max allowable limits, but they're above factory. So we're going to go ahead and take the oil control ring. We're going to go ahead and put this in there. And we're going to drop it down. And what I'm using is the edge of the piston for my height, so I can get them all at about the same height checking. So, because the main thing is to make sure that they're not tight. So, if they're too tight, then we got to file them. And of course, this is a little bit, it's snug on max allowable, which is fine. So that's how you check that, and we're going to go ahead and assemble it. I'm going to show you guys what I got. I got my ring file if I need to file it. So, which you might have to do or might not. On a new build, you probably do. This one doesn't seem to have to, but we got it anyway. So we're going to go ahead and set my rings there. We're going to set them off to the side. Go ahead and take this piston, because I want to take this old piston off. So we're going to go ahead and pop this clip off with my other pick. So you can go in here and you can pop the clip out. Just watch your eyes. Make sure you have glasses on. So if the clip goes flying, you don't lose an eye. So we pop that clip out. So we're going to make sure arrow is pointing that way, which has the stamps on it. So that way I can make sure to put it back in the right way. I have to grab my hammer. Just lightly tap him. Go. Should we'll pull that out, and there we go. We're going to set that there for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and just push that back in. That way I can get it back in there and it's out of the way, and I don't lose any parts. And we're going to go ahead and just pop the old clip back in just so I don't lose it. Not that it really needs to be done, because these are going to be scrapped, but figure why not. don't lose anything. And I have all my parts back together. My old parts, I should say. There we go. So now we got the old piston put back together. Just gonna set that off to the side. So now our number is gonna go this way. Our arrow goes that way. So let's go ahead and put the clip in on this side. So that way I don't have to worry about it later. We'll go ahead and take the one clip. We'll go ahead and pop it in. And we'll flip it because our arrow goes that way. I already put a bunch of assembly lube on it, but we're gonna put some more anyway, just to make sure we got enough. So I use this stuff. It doesn't hurt. So I got a mixture of the assembly lube and oil in that can there, so that way I can pump. So I just like to make sure we got more than enough on everything, because it's cheap, $8, good insurance to make sure I don't break anything. So we're gonna go ahead and rub that there. We're just gonna rub it in there just to make sure. And then we'll take the pin. We'll get the pin started, maybe. Hold on, I gotta pick it up. I don't have it aligned. There we go. So we got it started now. My arrow is towards the door. My numbers are towards the door. So we'll go ahead and push that in there like so. And then we could go ahead and put this clip on. There we go. Okay, so now we got the pin and the piston on the connecting rod, and it moves around. We can go ahead and start putting our rings on. The top ring, let's see if I could show you guys this. When you look at the rings, you'll see one's got a little lip on it. That's the second ring. So we want to find the first ring, which doesn't have that lip. So sometimes you'll see dots on them for which way goes up. Sometimes they got a manufacturer stamp on the ring. So you want to look for that. So that way you can put up, up. And then just, you could buy a tool for installing these if you want. Personally, I just kind of work them around, they pop. What you want to do for this one is I will look and verify just to make sure. The groove, if I remember, it goes on the bottom, which, looking at this piston, there it is, so it's down below. So that groove goes upwards, like so. The manufacturer will tell you, always look at your old pistons, then you could tell. So there we go. So this oil ring's a little bit weird because it's got like a pin, or you could see that, the steel piece. So some rings you can pop apart and do that. Some rings you can't, probably because these are cheap rings you can. Other rings need to screw together. So it all depends on what the rings are and how they're made. This one goes like that. So what you're supposed to do is keep it, I think, 180 out. So I'm going to put that down. I'm going to put the gap on the top. And I just kind of work it over top of the one ring. I get it past one ring, and then I do the second ring. Put it down in the groove. just work it around. There we go. And that's how you set them up. And then you got to space them according to the manual. Then you put your clamp on there, which I'll show you guys just installing it. The thing I will say before you guys install it is to make sure to take off your caps, put your new bearings in, and before you put the caps on, make sure to coat your bearings in assembly lube so you don't screw them up. Maybe coat your crank if you want. Oil's always good. If you think it needs oil, it needs oil. If you're not sure if it needs oil, it needs oil. If you don't know if you want to put oil on it, put oil on it. I mean, that's about the best answer. Anything, everything gets oiled. Cylinder walls, crank, everything. So, put oil on, putting oil on the crank now. So this is actually, I guess, more of a, I don't know, I guess you could say a rebuild on it, but it's not really a rebuild. I'm just re-ringing it, new pistons, because the one piston was screwed up. So I guess it's a soft rebuild, you can call it. I don't know. We'll see how it runs when it's all together. All right, so now you put the piston in with the markings towards the injection pump. You drop it down. Actually, before I drop it down, I'm just going to throw some more oil in that cylinder, because why not? It'll burn off. Doesn't hurt anything. Keeps everything sliding good. So we put some more oil on there. So the other thing I do too is before I go on to the next piston is I spin the engine over to make sure it still moves. So that way I know if something's tight or seized, I know which cylinder is causing the issue and where to look. So my crank is not torqued, it is just snugged. Connecting rod bolts. I don't like something's going on with that. Usually it drops right down, so we're gonna go ahead and lift up and see what's going on. See the ring? First time this happened to me, so I'm gonna have to pull it back up and put my clamp back on. Actually, yeah, we'll lift it back up. We'll start again. Actually, I might be able just to do that one. So that's what happens sometimes. First one it's screwed up on. There we go. So the reason I put the paper in there is just so then I don't get wood stuck in there. So now what you do is you get it in there, and I reach up from the bottom to feel the connecting rod coming down to kind of guide it. That's still a little bit tight. I guess I was off. So I must be hitting the crank there. That's what it was. What you want to do is now guide the connecting rod down to the crank. Make sure you don't scratch the crank. There we go. Connecting rod is down on the crank. So now I can go ahead and put the cap on. And again, like everything, the numbers that are stamped face the injection pump on it. All right, guys, we got the cylinder head area all cleaned up and dirt off it, so we can go ahead and put the gasket on. So with the gasket, you got to make sure you put it the right way. where the pins align. So you have a small pin there, a small pin there. If you put it the other way, the pins don't align, as you guys can see. The holes more or less line up, but the pins don't align. But these are backwards then. So, and see how that is? So make sure you put the gasket the right way to start, which would save you a lot of hassle. So that way it can drop in on that alignment pin there, which then will align to the cylinder head. So push it down and you're good there. The next thing is to make sure your cylinder head is nice and clean, which I've already done. Took a razor scraper, cleaned it up, took a wire brush, cleaned where the valves are because I'm not pulling the head all apart. I'm just trying to make this thing run. That's all I'm trying to do. The best option is to send the engine out, get the engine overhauled, get the head redone, get everything redone. But my thing is just to make this thing run. It's home use. It's not commercial. I just need it to run. I put 40, 50 hours a year on this thing. So to me, going through and buying a reman engine for $8 grand right now is not what I need. Maybe in the future I'll do that when I'm actually really using this machine. But right now it's just home use. So gets, like I said, 40, 50 hours at least, maybe 100 hours most. So, but anyway, this is all cleaned up. So we can go ahead and put this head back on. I scraped it, got a little gasket off, sprayed it down with some brake parts cleaner that I had gotten. It was cheap. It was on markdown in Walmart. So we're going to use that, which works pretty good because it evaporates pretty quick. So you can see all the sediment that I cleaned off from the valves. So we're going to go ahead and set this camera down, and I'm going to go ahead and pick that up and put it there, and we can go ahead and start working it. As you guys can see, we got the head set down. Like I was saying before, make sure you don't lose your caps for your rockers for your valves. I'm going to go ahead and get all these bolts ran down. I do have a torque for the bolts in order. I have to find them and go from there. We'll see what we can get done.